recognizing those temptations. If you find yourself on the couch, you get up, you go to your cupboards, your pantry, the fridge, and you're just wanting to more or less eat because you're bored more.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people fall under that category, myself included. I think it's recognizing when you get up and are looking at that fridge or at the pantry of, okay, we probably shouldn't be here, grab some water, go sit back down.
If you're going to shoot and not have an aim, you're not going to be anywhere near the target that you think you have. And I think that's going to be consistent across most people who have an idea of what they want, but don't actually plan for it, make goals for it, and track what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
You're going to get outlapped and paced by people who are doing that.
Welcome to the Functional Code, your go-to source for decoding optimal health. Join Dr. Addy and Dr. Jace as they break down the science behind pain, performance, longevity, and more, making complex concepts easy for you to understand and apply in your life. Your journey to a healthier you begins with understanding the Functional Code.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Functional Code. We are talking wellness reset for 2025. We're talking goal setting. We're talking pillars of wellness that you guys should be including in the plans that you're making to really come in and kill 2025 as best as you can. We're going to help you guys obviously create plans along the way. But yeah, we're super excited to bring this to you guys today, especially now that 2025 is coming up. And we want to just give you guys as much value and help to really come out and absolutely kill your wellness plan moving in. So everybody, as always, I am Dr. Addy.
And I am Dr. Jace. Yeah, we were thinking about putting some stuff together to prep others going into the new year. And what better way than to end December with prep work for the new year. So
Yes.
If you feel like you've been burnt out, if you feel like you don't have a plan, if you feel like your day's just going over
Yes.
and all these days are combined together, that's where we have to go almost back to the chalkboard.
Yeah.
And let's take a peek at a couple of the 4 things that encompass a huge portion of wellness, which we'll get to here in a second too. So as you go through, you might have to write down some of these yourself. You might have to take account of each and every one of these pillars. And some of the stuff that we bring up today, honestly, there's many probably other resources, other tools out there. It just starts giving you ideas to how you can prep your year moving forward as well. Some of the 4 pillars we're going to look at, and this will make for a healthier, happier you. We're going to start out nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management. I don't know how many people out there have either problems with one or multiple of these, especially in the society we're living in. We're going to dive into each one. We're going to give a little bit of an understanding or a little bit of a tip, tool for you guys to use for each one of those. If you guys want, you can touch on previous podcasts that we've had as well, and we can go from there. So let's start off with nutrition, one of the pillars for wellness. Now, Doc, what's certain part do you want to touch on with nutrition that can help people accelerate into?
I think for most, they're like everyone else who's really busy, and some of you even have kids, family members that you have to also take care of on top of yourself. So not only are you taking care of yourself and your family members, but you're going to a job that requires you to obviously serve other people. So you get to that point where you feel like you have zero minutes left in your day to even make a meal, let alone want to make a meal, especially if you've been very busy and you are burnt out and you're just like, I don't even have the will to really figure that last 20 minutes of my day out before I go to bed, and I certainly don't want to make a meal. So I would say this is interesting because I was actually just talking to my partner over the weekend about some of the things that we can do to improve this area of our life, and we tracked kind of spending habits, and we've been extremely busy, so we've been looking at figuring out a way to sit down and meal prep like we used to. But we also then looked into, okay, if we really don't even have the time, which we've been quite busy, what does a meal prep planning service look like? And as far as expenses go, and we tracked spending, eating out versus the actual meal prep service itself, and it was pretty similar.
Smart.
I guess my tip would be, number one, if you want to save as much money as you can and continue to still be healthy, meal prepping one day a week is going to be the most advantageous for you. And you're always going to get the ability to create meals at roughly anywhere from probably $2 to $5 a meal when you're meal prepping, and that's standard. It might be more depending on where you live, but I just did a broad range there. And there's YouTube videos where you can go on and say, how do I meal prep less than $5 a meal? I mean, you can. There's so many people, and they're good, nutritious meals. Just make sure to just obviously be aware of just use your gut instinct on if you think that meal isn't as healthy. If it's just a bunch of cream, noodles, and meat, look for like Whole Foods, those kinds of options. But if you are like myself and you feel like you can afford the investment of a meal prep service, and you don't have time, or you feel like you're just, again, too busy to meal prep, I think that's something that you should look into as well, because there are a lot of great services out there who take care of everything for you. And if you feel like that's something that you can fit into your budget, that's something done for you. It's an investment for yourself, so don't feel like you're not worth that, because a lot of people, of course, they have a tough time spending money on themselves. And so this is something that is going to be so crucial for your health and for your time, and I do think it is well worth the investment. And from the services and companies that I've used, a lot of them are pretty tasty, and there's not a lot of discrepancy with how they prepare. A lot of them are gluten-free, dairy-free kitchens that you look into. They're done by like chefs. It's the real deal. And then of course they come vacuum sealed, so they store very well, and they're shipped usually on dry ice, so they're obviously very cold still once you receive them. So if you've never used one, I would look into Factor. Is really popular. Cook Unity is another one that we're looking into. If you yourself really just don't like the made for you, there are companies that will ship you ingredients to make your own food.
Oh, really?
So that way you don't have to go shopping. And that's called Blue Apron or HelloFresh or Freshly. I think there's a few of those. And they have really good deals where if you want to start, they'll send you like, I want to say 15 meals to start.
Wow.
And there's some really big deals that they'll go through. So the options are endless out there for you guys. If you truly just hate grocery shopping, hate preparing food, and you don't want to continue to use your time during the week for that. So that's what I would definitely say as far as nutrition goes, to reset and find a different option to make sure that you're hitting your macro needs, your nutrition needs, and obviously just making sure that that's a major part of the planning that you guys do in 2025, because I know that you can get, when you get behind, the body and the brain starts craving that quick and easy carb, that quick and easy energy, and you know where you're going to go, that drive-through line and those quick breads and pastas. So
yes. Now, I like that point you made, especially with most people looking at the bottom number of any like meal service, and they think, okay, that's really steep.
Yeah.
I feel like half the people don't realize what they're spending either out to eat or just even the grocery store itself.
It's getting worse too. I feel inflation was tough on people,
Yes.
and so maybe people are eating out less, but even still eating out less, for a family of four, I feel like you can't even get out of that restaurant without spending $100 or more, and that's crazy.
100%.
And usually with a meal prep service, you can get about 20 meals for around $100, maybe 150.
That's incredible.
So one meal eating out, or 20 meals for, I don't know, and it varies per service, but that's something that you should think about. Really
Yes.
should think about.
And just to take a piece off of another thing you said in terms of temptations, and I'll have kind of 2 points wrapped into one another with that one. I think one of which is recognizing those temptations. If you find yourself on the couch, you get up, you go to your cupboards, your pantry, the fridge, and you're just wanting to more or less eat because you're bored more.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people fall under that category, myself included. I think it's recognizing when you get up and are looking at that fridge or at the pantry of, okay, we probably shouldn't be here, grab some water, go sit back down. So that's going to be one. The other one is, if you want to start planning out at least one healthy meal a week, awesome. Maybe start on a Sunday afternoon. Plan out that. I know my wife and I, we usually start that out for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then go store again in the week and do it again. But that way, as adults, it's interesting. I always actually love leftovers instead of, when I was a kid, I always hated leftovers. It's a weird circumstance and change on things. But yeah, When you look at planning out a healthy meal, start walking the perimeters of the grocery store.
Yes.
That would be the other point. And just make that a routine and a cycle of yours to watch the aisles, because that's where a lot of the processed food is. That's where, more times than not, where certain things are that can have more detrimental effects to your health.
Yep.
Doesn't matter what store. Usually they lay it out that way on purpose, so people have a general understanding there.
Yep.
Going back to what Doc said, whole hearty food, get some vegetables, get some meat, making sure that you're not sensitive to any of those foods that you may have reactions to is also important to keep track of. And then maybe try something with the significant other of trying a meal, make a bunch of it, maybe a double, triple batch, have an idea of how you want to store it as well, whether it's in glass Tupperware, whether it's...
That would be ideal.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially with the plastics and warming those up. Ideally, you want to stay away from that. So you can start that way, just so you can either take those out, microwave, heat those up, and then you're ready to rock and roll for the day or for lunch. Or just create a huge pot and then just take it out and microwave it from there.
And I like that you said, if you want to start light and not jump into meal prepping 7 days a week,
Yep.
that's perfect, because too many times we get overwhelmed with the fear of failing or the fear of not sticking to something, and it can be overwhelming to make that kind of change. And it is overwhelming. I meal prepped every week for a few years in a row,
Wow.
and it was absolutely worth it. But at the same time, I look back and I'm like, that was another day of my weekend that I didn't get because I was meal prepping 6 hours of that day. However, I absolutely saved so much money and stayed healthy because of the meal prepping. And that's not that I'm not healthy now, because I still choose healthy options when I go out to eat, but it's more expensive now.
Yes.
And you feel it more. So starting soft, like you said, a couple times a week instead, I still think that's a great option for people. And don't feel like you're not doing a good job with even just 2 meals a week, because some people like, why would I even do 2 meals a week when I am eating all the other parts of the week? And I can't think like that. It still will help make a difference, and it's still preparing and prepping you for a better habit once you get to that point in time. So you got to start somewhere. So I like that you brought that up.
Yeah, and really good point of, obviously, when you look at the 6 hours, some people can take less than that, so I wouldn't get too thrown off with the 6 hour mark on that side of things. But
Yeah, that was just what
yeah.
I would make. But
Yeah.
if others, you could probably do way quicker. Yeah.
Absolutely. And when you look at that, it's that time invested in, which can save you time during the week. It'll also create a healthier habits. It's going to create a healthier you. So risk versus reward, way more reward for that time spent.
For sure.
Absolutely. So that is nutrition. Now, like we said, there's probably way more other tips, but these are some awesome gems. Now, let's move into movement. Another key pillar for wellness. Now, when we look at movement, this could be anything from small micro movements during your everyday life at work. This could be going to the gym. This could be a bunch of different things to get your body moving throughout your day. Doc, what is a good one that you have in terms of movement tool?
I would say for those wanting to add exercise into their 2025 resolutions, first and foremost, we might get to resolutions a little bit later in the pod too, because that's something that we've talked about on other podcasts. So I'm going to leave it there. What I would say is, if you're thinking of adding exercise into this 2025, these goals of yours, I would say, if you have never worked out and it's been years, I would have more realistic goals than starting at multiple times a week, even more than 3 times a week. And my advice is, this is something that you haven't done in a very long time. And if it's been longer than even 3 to plus years, I would worry that you're going to get into that, and a few things might happen. Number 1, you might go so hard you get injured. Number 2, you immediately meet the resistance of that amount of load on your body, and you get incredibly sore. You get burnt out because you're like, wow, I am so out of shape. This is just, and you're gonna get met with that resistance. But I would challenge you to do this instead. I would start either at once a week or twice a week for just a couple weeks, and it doesn't have to be 2 hours long. It can be 15 minutes. It could be 20 minutes, and I would set a realistic timeline of what it looks like to you to meet your finished goal and give yourself an incredible amount of time to get there. So let's say instead of thinking, okay, I want to be working out so many days a week in a few months, why don't you push that to a year, maybe even 2 years? But create a plan of how that change occurs. So once a week for 4 weeks, maybe twice a week for then 6 weeks. And then, okay, if you still can't figure out that 3 times a week, then continue it twice a week for half a year and just continue that and be okay
Yes.
with that. And then next thing, you're working out twice a week for that half a year already. It may not sound like much, it will make a difference, a heck of a difference. And then for that final 6 months of the year, now that's maybe where you finally got to 3 times a week. And it took you a while to get there. It wasn't just instantaneous. So I would just be cautious with setting these goals and being realistic about how you get there. Now, let's say you've been working out consistently and you're getting into working out again. I would say that if you're used to working out a certain amount of days a week, that's fine. Probably get back into it. But if you've been the person who starts and stops, then I would just caution you to think about, why are you stopping? And I think most people stop because they either don't have the right thought process about what it takes to get to that next step. And it's usually they plateau, or they get burnt out, or what they're doing usually just is met with resistance. And that's kind of what we just talked about. So for those, I would just recommend that you try to change up how you work out a little bit more. And that can be not in the gym. It could be doing things that you maybe haven't done before, like classes in your area. It could be going in nature and hiking versus actually going into the gym. Just changing up the way that you work out. That can also maybe create some more fun. But also, it might be backing down, where if you are that person that wants to work out 5-6 times a week, from what I've read, that isn't always the best case. Even that 3 to 4 times a week, but working longer, might actually be something that you would rather have. You just don't know it yet. So 3 to 4 times a week, you have more time to do things for fun on the side. You're not having to worry about getting to the gym in those extra couple days. That might be something that you can think about too. But those are just my opinions, and using personal experiences along with other client experiences that I've had, that tends to work well for them. But anything that you have on that, Doc?
Yeah, that's, man, I absolutely love that comment, because I feel like everyone starts off at, okay, I got to start 3 times a week. They don't realize that that barrier of resistance is way more common than people realize, and that is often not said right at the beginning too. So yeah, really good point on that one. I think there's a few that I know some of which that I got added on and talked a couple podcasts ago with Micah on walking after meals, and I think naturally I myself do that. But whether it's you eat dinner and go for a walk, so you can start the metabolism going a little bit quicker, which can help for weight loss, it can help for energy and metabolism, a little bit of everything. But even taking it a whole 180, have breakfast, get outside, go for a walk as well. So then you get either sunrise or at the end of the day sunset, so you can re-regulate the circadian cycle, which will help all the other cells throughout the body re-regulate themselves. Ideally, like we said, consistency is the biggest thing. I know with your point in working half a year, maybe 1-2 times a week, and then the availability to build up, going through movement on a consistent basis to create that change and that habit formation. So in terms of getting outside, going for a walk, moving your body after meals, incredibly important. Even at lunch, eating lunch and then going for a walk, or getting up, moving around outside your desk.
I think they showed even 8 minutes was enough to create metabolic change after a meal. So it doesn't have to be a lot.
100%. And it's a good point. The other part that I wanted to add in was every body part I want you to focus on. This may be for more advanced individuals that may have been working out for a while, but even those that haven't, it still is a general really good principle to where focus on one body area or region maybe a week. Maybe it's 2 body regions a week, either or. So what I mean by that is, let's say we look at addressing the calves, the shins, just the knee and down. what exercises can you start doing to address all these tissues? One, you can go through mobility, so circles, workspaces. You can go and do tapping throughout your everyday life, or twitching, which can increase the metabolism, burn another 800 to 1,500 calories a day. Whether it's squeezing your calves as hard as you possibly can in small increments throughout the day, whether it's holding your toes up off the ground as long as you can, whether you go for reps or just one rep at a time for as long as you can, that works as well. Whether it's gripping the ground, putting outside 4 toes down to the ground, big toe up, and then vice versa, big toe down, outside 4 toes up. So that would be a couple things just on that body region. Now let's say, for example, we want to focus on the quads. Maybe that it's going to involve the knees, hips, okay? If that's the case, then we can focus on squats. We can do leg extension, so straighten your leg with maybe a rotation, bending your knee, laying face down, and holding that there as long as possible. You can work on rotational work, which involves the hips. So those are just a few in that area and region. Now, then it's going to be the same thing for the arms, and there's different types of movements you could do with that. Spine, same thing. And those, you can go back through our body series for more tools with that. But it just breaks down where the focus can be. And maybe, let's say you're working out, you work out 5 times a week. Awesome. Maybe keep on with that schedule and just add a focused part before or after your workout on those exact areas to start building up the foundation for each body area and body piece, just so it can help refrain from past injuries and for future injuries to come as well. So those would be the few that I would look at myself to do, and a really good thought process moving into 2025 as
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah. I like that. And that's great for office workers who during the day need more of that movement. And it doesn't have to be like you need to go to the gym every hour. It's just simple movements, like you said. And Doc put out a great upper lower exercise video too, probably 5 or 6 videos ago. So look into that as well. And he broke down every single region that you guys can do those kinds of workouts, exercises without weights, maybe the 1 or 2 head weights. Other than that, it was very user-friendly and helpful for those who just want to get into those starting movements. So
it's a good workout too.
Absolutely. Yeah. So next up is sleep, which is my number one pillar. It's got to be the most important for what I explain to patients, for what we, Doc and I, do as body experts, helping people come from pain and from dealing with injuries. But sleep is how people heal. So not only is it going to be helpful for tons and tons of important things, but just even from day-to-day stuff, we talk about that all the time. If you're not sleeping, you're not healing. There's so many things that we can jump into with sleep. I think we did a sleep podcast. You guys can even go back and look at that. From just one, my big tool would be, I would say, if you're going to start really changing your sleep habits, your sleep routine, I would say starting with these 3 things would be helpful. Number 1, going to bed at a consistent time and waking up at a consistent time, and then actually doing that on the weekends. The weekends are where people lose that. So that's got to be 1. And however you figure that out, I know a lot of people work a lot during the week and use their weekends to sleep more. I would just try to still wake up and go to bed at the same time. If you want to take naps during the day, that's fine. But don't ruin that sleep-wake cycle. Second thing, sleep incredibly cold weather. Temperature, I'm telling you, if you can lower your resting temperature rate in your body, that is one quick way to get better sleep. It works on almost every patient. And then the third would be a dark room, dark as you can. Every time I've moved, the first thing I usually buy are curtains that black out my windows, because that is by far one of the most helpful things. So cold temperature, curtains, sleep-wake cycle. Those got to be the quick and easy ones, but I'm sure there's so many others, Doc. Anything that you have to say there?
I think just to add on to, especially going to sleep in a cooler room, let's dive into that a little bit more. Let's say you want to help accelerate yourself going to sleep, or if it's harder for you to fall asleep, I would look to take a warm shower and then go into a cold room, which can help drop the core body temp quite quickly. So that would be a really good one there. I think, gosh, another one off the top of my mind. God, there's just so many.
I know you've used
Yep.
Whoop in the past too.
Yes.
I know that one was helpful for you. Do you want to just briefly touch on that?
Yeah, Whoop is a band, which I actually don't have on right now.
I was gonna say, I feel like that's the first time I've
Dude,
ever seen you not have it.
Literally, I know exactly where it's at too. So it's a band that helps track sleep. It helps track strain on the body, like resting heart rate. There's a
Yep.
bunch of stuff like that. So you can have a general understanding. Does your body feel like it is ready to go? If you have a low recovery score, you might want to back off on the intensity of either your workouts for the day or stress load. But if you have higher sleep score, higher percentage in terms of feeling well rested, not even just looking at the Whoop score, but just feeling well rested itself. So I like that, and I use that on a consistent basis other than fascinating right now.
Yeah, ironic.
But yeah, no, I think going back to the part is going to be consistency. So the part that Dr. Addy made with going to sleep and awake at the same time from weekdays to weekends, incredibly important. And then if you are going to take naps, limit it to less than 90 minutes because our body works in what's known as ultradian cycles, which go in about 90-minute cycles throughout everyone's day and even into night. That can help accelerate there, because if you then go into greater than 90 minutes sleep, you're going to feel groggy. It's going to hard for your whole system rolling through the rest of the day as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
those would be a few things on the top of my mind.
Yeah,
from there.
absolutely. And I know we touched on, I don't know how many more gems from
Yeah.
when we actually broke down the sleep on the sleep podcast. So if you guys truly want to know how to hack your sleep, please look that one up, because we spent a good hour, maybe even longer,
Yes.
on breaking it down. And everyone should anyway, because sleep is absolutely important.
Oh, I
But
can't even remember.
yeah, there are a plethora of good things out there to help you. Lastly, we have stress management, which I don't think anyone can argue. That's something that they probably are, everyone's working on day in and day out. I feel like the longer you're on this earth, the more you're having to look at how to manage that appropriately. That one is one that I'm currently trying to manage right now. I accepted a role running a clinic in Phoenix now, and that's just a new responsibilities on my plate, and I'm super excited, very excited. But it's new responsibilities, and it's just things that I'm not used to doing, and now it's making sure that I can stay grounded while I'm journeying into my new role. And it's as fun as it's been, I'm also like, you know what? Ooh, I got to start figuring out how to just stay grounded while I'm journeying through this. For me, I know that I need to do cold plunging again. That's just been one that's kept me really balanced. My resilience to stress just is high, is just so much higher. And I just noticed that even things that usually can shift me either off of my game a little bit easier, it doesn't happen when I'm cold plunging. And then I'm just more focused, my mental clarity, and just even all around happiness and excitement for the day definitely is improved too. So that was one that I'm going to add very quickly back into my routine, because it was something that I noticed a huge difference in. But how about you, Doc?
Yeah, and actually, before going to me, because I feel like some people would ask this question, what time of the day would you ideally want to do cold plunge?
And if I could ideally do it, I'm usually up already early in the morning to start my commute to my job. So right now, if I could get up even earlier and cold plunge, I would do it, but that's a little more difficult for me. So I'm actually, that's why I haven't done it yet. I'm trying to figure out what part of my day to effectively put it into. So whether that's, I do it more on the weekends when I have time, and then I have to figure out maybe day to day in the week to see what that looks like. Another one for me that I've been continually doing is working out too. That's been a big one too, but I'll leave that one for a little bit here. I'll let you add in what you want to add. But
Beautiful.
yeah, it's tough because for most of you, I feel like it's either a morning or a night workout person. So if this is something that you want to add in morning or night, I don't think there's a difference as long as you get it in. The only thing is some people respond after cold plunging by becoming more exhilarated. The only thing would be is if it does tend to affect your sleep, just if you notice that, just obviously use that at your own kind of experiment. But I tended to do it earlier in the day, which was helpful for me, but that's just my own experience.
And it makes a lot of sense. looking at even some of the research too, it's
Yeah.
very similar. And even if it's 3 minutes in the cold plunge, that'll still have really good effects too.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be anything too crazy. It's just that mental stress of actually just getting into that water is the
I think
toughest
some
part.
research has shown even 11 minutes a week, 3 minutes a day for 4 days. That's it. In 3 minutes, you're like, okay, I can do that. But I'll tell you what, you get in for that cold plunge for 3 minutes. Yeah. I won't go any further. I don't want to deter anybody from doing it. But anyway.
That's awesome. I think one of the things for my stress management tools are going to be probably 2 things. I'll take a kind of a side of one on the mental side of things, to where if you feel stressed out in your environment, either change the setting,
Yes.
get away from whatever that is, get out in nature, get out, do something you love. And actually, if it's tougher for you to find time, you got to schedule it out. You got to put in your planner. It is what it is. It's one of those to where your mental health is so important. Like when you start noticing the stress just on a couple small scenarios, maybe it's a couple times a week, that's something you can't brush off, because it will compound and it'll lead to negative effects that you don't even realize down the road.
Yes.
So that is going to be really important. The other one, for some people, can also help in terms of meditation, whether that's just walking meditation, to where, let's say, okay, going back, we go for a walk after a meal. Don't bring your phone with you. Don't listen to any music. Just walk and just zone out. Pick a point far away as you possibly can. Just zone on that point for a while as you're walking. Your mind's going to probably be wandering a bunch of other places. Obviously, pay attention to traffic, depending where you're at. Safety, of course. But yeah, that's where you can deload off stress quite a bit, or go back and forth between looking as you're walking forward to a small point, pay attention to that for a few seconds, and then broaden your horizon to where you're looking at the biggest area you possibly can, and go back and forth. That'll also have a calming effect as well too. Now let's say we want to do some breathing meditation work. Perfect place to start, and fascinating enough, we're going to take a page out of David Brecka's
Nice.
book, to where you wake up in the morning, you do about 5 to 8 minutes of just deep breathing. So that'll involve taking deep breaths in through your chest, through your diaphragm. You go through that, that'll open up the rib cage. It'll allow you to awaken and re-oxygenate a lot of the cells throughout the whole body. It'll start the day off with a little bit more mental clarity as well. Now, if you want to increase the awareness, you either increase the amount of inhales or the time you're inhaling versus exhaling. If you want to calm down, de-stress, you want to exhale more, or the amount of times you exhale versus inhale. So just an easy little tool on that one. If you want to calm down in a stressful situation, double inhale, prolonged exhale. So it's the fastest way our body knows how to physically calm itself down. So those would be a couple tools that I would have right there.
Absolutely.
As well.
Love breath work. I use it almost every day.
Yes,
and no, I think there are so many different ways to manage that part of your life. I think what all of those fall under umbrella-wise is just planning for it.
Yes.
And so this is where we're going to jump now into creating your personalized plan and what that should look like. So, Doc, do you want to just touch on a few things about how to set up that for people's awareness and their planning, especially for not only physical but mental, and just everything as far as how to go about that, and then we'll just touch on you and I maybe just adding in what we think too. But
beautiful, I love it. So when you're creating this personalized plan, let's take in consideration those 4 pillars: nutrition, movement, sleep, stress management. At least looking at those. Maybe for you, if your plate's already full, you're just listening to this, you're trying to get some gems, okay? Just maybe look at just one at a time, just obsess and pick on a few small things that you can improve your everyday life on that side of things, okay? So when you are looking at creating a personalized plan, ideally it's best where you have the awareness, so you want to write that down, put in your phone, whatever plan you have, create as a screensaver on your phone so you can just see it every single time. Just incredibly important there. So I think the first part we all need to start is awareness. Where are areas that we need to improve on that will have better effects for us? Maybe we're not getting enough sleep. there's a small set of population, very small, that don't need a lot of sleep. I wouldn't even start considering that for the masses. It's just,
You're like, oh, that's me.
Yes.
Is it?
probably chances are not. Because even if you start noticing like some effects for a longer period of time, like you're not sleeping, you sleep like 5-6 hours a day, but oh, you have energy throughout the day. Okay, how is your mental acuity? Do you feel fatigued? Those small little things can add up over time. Is it sleep? Is it food? Is it something that you want to lose weight? If so, maybe let's look at the nutrition side of things and go
Yes.
back to a few tools that we just touched on there. Whether it's movement, you have family, you have kids, you can't find time. Small tapping of your opposite foot driving the car, there's part of it. Working and scheduling out these small things of movement practices throughout your day, taking breaks, incredibly important there. And then in terms of stress management, do you feel like you're overwhelmed? If that's the case, then let's go into breathing practices. Let's go into just getting out of those stressful situations. It's paying attention to where are the areas that you want to improve. Even if you feel like you're doing really darn good with all these, can you get 1% better? Maybe it's joining a gym that has a hot-cold contrast therapy involved, like a sauna, a hot tub, cold plunge, cryotherapy. Like that would just be another thing you could add into your everyday life. So first thing, awareness. Second thing is picking and choosing throughout your typical average schedule on where you can improve on certain areas. And I just went over those. So everyone's going to be a little bit personalized, especially if you get out of work at 3 o'clock. You have from 3 o'clock to, for some people, 10 at night. There's hours and hours of time you can add on there. Whether it's in the morning before work, at lunch, like there's, everyone has time. It's all depending on where you want your focus and attention to be. It's pretty simple at the end of the day.
For some of you, like myself, who gets home really late and they have about an hour or two before you eat, go to bed, maybe throw a shower in there. So for some of you out there, it's what can I then do to gain that time? And for me, like myself, it's going to be these meals that I'm going to be purchasing, because then that's going to give me that extra amount of time too. The awareness part is so important. I think how to be aware is art that people are still maybe learning about themselves too. If you have a significant other, you can ask them and say, hey, where do you feel like I need to improve? Or where do you think I should start? Where do you think maybe help prioritize if you still have questions? Other things you could do is just go see a provider. There are wellness providers, doctors, even chiropractors who absolutely love to dissect that, help you with that. Functional medicine providers, I'm sure even Chinese medicine and naturopaths, all of those providers who enjoy the part of health that isn't as well studied, but still contributes to your health tremendously. And I don't even say that. I would say a lot of that is studied. It's just not talked about, is maybe the better way to put it. Because again, it's tough for places to make money off of things that don't cost money to change. Sleeping in a colder temperature is like an extra how many cents a day from air conditioning. There isn't much to be made off of that provider telling you to help you improve your sleep. So I would say if you have questions, there are people out there that can help you. And then as far as planning goes, I like the idea of starting with one first before maybe, not to say you couldn't, you probably could, you do all at the same time. It's just a matter of what you feel that you can do. So pick one. It doesn't matter which one, because priority-wise, those ones, all of them can absolutely make a difference in your life. So pick one, be consistent, and then making sure that you have it down probably before you move to the next one. And so I know we've talked habit chaining in the past too, but for some of you, it's just simplicity that makes it easier for you guys. So if you truly feel like you can't juggle more things at once, even though if you go back to our habit chaining talk, if you feel like you can, and you want to get into 2025 and you want to kill all these, we absolutely think you can. It's just got to do it the right way. But if you say, I need to do one of these, do it. And just make sure that you have it down before you move to the next one. So that's what I have there.
Yeah, fully dive into whatever it is that you want your intentions to be.
Yes.
It's going to be the game changer from there. And even if like you don't have a support system at home, looking at each and every day at the end of the day, where are certain small things I could have done better, whether it's your job, whether it's these small wellness pillars, that's going to be a huge thing. And then taking a look at, okay, how did your week go? Looking on Sunday, how was the previous week? At the end of the month, how was the end of the month? And you could do the same thing quarterly, yearly as well in terms of goal setting moving forward. But those are just some small things. And if you guys want to know where the past habit was, I think that is our first one we've ever did. So just rewind back on that one. Yeah.
And so I know, Doc, you have some studies that you brought up that even just showed why goal setting is something that will give you a greater chance of success.
Yes.
And I know you and I love goals, and I know that you and I can probably remember when we first started creating goals and what that was like as far as almost like a catalyst to create the success that we both have wanted. And then as we've got along the way, been able to look back, I'm sure, and see some of the changes that we've made along the way too. But I would just encourage you to if you're not making goals, to start making goals. And I don't know how many goal books there are out there. You can probably Google so many motivational speakers, entrepreneurs, all these people that have their own book on what goals, how they do their goals and those kinds of things. But just why that is so effective. Doc, do you want to just share that first study?
Yeah, so some of this we just wanted to make sure that you have a general understanding. So the first study was on the new and old strategies to curb the obesity epidemic in children. I find this fascinating. So the study was a randomized control trial on RCT, so a high quality study. They had with 300 children, ages between 6 and 12. They were divided into pretty much 3 groups: a control group where there was no intervention, another group where it just gave general advice for healthy living, and then the other one was specific goal setting with parental involvement. Now, when you look at kids and parental involvement, that can also be very same of a spouse or significant other, having a person with you to help with the goal setting. And they looked at body mass index scores, BMI, dietary habits, activity levels. And when they looked at this, the intervention was the goal setting group had a nutritionist, a therapist to helping with goal achieving, and even looking at replacing like different nutritional habits in terms of sugary drinks with water or engaging in 30 minutes of daily physical activity. The parents in the goal setting group were also trained to reinforce the habit, so you have someone help you reinforce what you want and what your goal is. And they found that the children in the goal setting group showed 30% greater improvement in BMI or body mass index scores, improvements in dietary habits compared to any of the other groups. And that is just the general advice and then the no intervention itself. So huge importance to have a support system with you, whether it's a family member, a significant other, or just even a coach itself too. Now let's take another study, because I thought this is another incredibly important one as well. The study was how to cope when things go wrong. So obviously we hit that barrier. It's how can we keep moving through it? And now this was a qualitative study involving 50 individuals between 25 and 50 years old who experienced significant life stressors such as job losses, illness, relationship breakdowns. And participants were guided through a resistance building program incorporating goal setting. Now the goals were divided into short terms, long terms, and then there was regular check-ins over about 6 months, providing opportunities for small changes and support along the way. And they collected mood scores, stress levels, resilience scores through different psychological scales. And they noticed as they were going and changing and tweaking at the 6-month mark, they noticed a 35% increase in patients who actively engaged in their goal setting compared to those in the control group that just didn't have anything at all involved with that. A lot of it was the most effective goals were action-oriented, and then actually creating a schedule and or counseling session. So it's writing it down, it's being aware of it on a consistent basis, putting on a screensaver, write it down on a piece of paper, putting it up on your mirror in your bathroom every time you brush your teeth, put it on your fridge. Like, the more you can pay attention to whatever it is you want to do, the better effects it'll have long term.
Absolutely. And really the only two things that came up when I was hearing you explain that was, number one, if you're going to shoot and not have an aim, you're not going to be anywhere near the target that you think you have. And I think that's going to be consistent across most people who have an idea of what they want, but don't actually plan for it, make goals for it, and track what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
You're going to get outlapped and paced by people who are doing that. So if you're not aiming, you're not going to know what you're going to hit. So I would just make sure that if you have the ability to start making goals, even just a little bit of, even just 1 or 2 goals, it doesn't have to be an absorbent amount, but just write it down. Also, give yourself a timeline too, because it comes to a point where you can make the goal, but if there's no urgency behind it, there's less action. And you got to make sure that you're always going to be taking action. That's what makes this a goal. Yeah, with that, Doc, anything else?
I love that. Yeah. It's starting small and being consistent.
Yep.
If you tackle those two, everything will fall into place from there. Create a good support system, and you're going to be on your way to a better, healthier you moving into 2025.
Yeah. And if you guys have any questions on how we make goals, or if you are curious about that, please just drop a comment. Let us know what you guys are thinking about moving into 2025. We'd love to help you in any way possible. And yeah, that's all for today. It was short, but hopefully super valuable. And thank you guys again for listening in. Until next time, Doc, you guys have a great day.
Disclaimer, the content provided in this health podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. Reliance on any information provided in this podcast is solely at your own risk. The creators and hosts of this podcast are not responsible for any actions or decisions you may take based on the information presented.
Thanks for joining us on The Functional Code. For more evidence-based health insights, subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. Remember, your journey to a healthier you begins with understanding the Functional Code. Until next time, stay well, stay informed, and embrace the science of living well.